Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, you're very welcome to this webinar on U.S. admissions exams. It's the first in our summer webinar series, and we are so thrilled to have ACT and Erica from ACT join us today to present some content for us on these exams. Before we begin, I just want to introduce myself. So my name is Sarah. I am the Advising and Events Manager at the US-UK Fulbright Commission. As you can probably tell by my accent, I'm American. I grew up in Texas, and I also studied there for university. I had the chance to study abroad twice, and I did my master's abroad. So I applaud you for just thinking about studying in the US and taking that leap to go overseas for your degree. And we realize it can be daunting, so this is why we want to be able to provide information more in depth about the different components that go into the application process. Just so that you're aware, we will be taking questions at the end. So we ask that you hold any questions until then. Probably some of your questions will be answered, hopefully, within the presentation. And at the end, you can enter your questions into the Q&A box, and then I'll address them to Erica. Also, a recording of this will be made available and sent to you afterwards, probably about a week from now. So you will also have that as a resource. If you do have any kind of IT issues or connection issues, you can enter that in the chat box, and I'll do my best to help you throughout the presentation. I did make a note here on this first slide, but Erica is going to be going through some practice questions. So we do recommend that you try to have a calculator handy just to go through some of those questions. And I've also put a link to a guide that she's going to be going through in the chat box. So that way you can reference that guide as she's going through it, and you can also have access to that later for reference whenever you're preparing on your own. Okay, so before I hand it over to Erica, I just want to say a few words about who we are. So the Fulbright Commission started over 70 years ago in the aftermath of the World Wars, and Senator Fulbright thought one of the best ways to avoid a third war was to promote peace through educational exchange. So that gave birth to Fulbright, and we promote exchange through our postgraduate awards, for research and study, both for Americans to the UK and Brits to the US. And then we also have our Education USA services that sit under Fulbright. So I am one of the Education USA advisors. And so our mission is basically to offer you free, unbiased advice about US study. We are the official source of US study in the UK. And we are part of a U.S. State Department network. So there's about 400 centers all over the world, all devoted to helping students like you navigate the U.S. application process. So we're here for you. We do have an advising inbox and a helpline that's open on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So do feel free to reach out to us, to go onto our website and use our resources. And that will really help as you kind of go through this process, which can be overwhelming. But we try to break down a lot of our advice to help you through that. Okay, so I also just want to give a general kind of overview for anyone who doesn't know what admissions tests are, where did they come from, why do I have to take them, just to give some context before Erica goes into a much more in-depth information about the test and the content. So why do we have admissions exams? Well, basically in the US, there is no national set educational system at secondary school level. So that means that secondary schools vary widely in the content that they deliver to their students. So that means for university admissions officers, it can be difficult to evaluate students that come from a rural school in the middle of Alaska as compared to a massive public school in Texas. So these admissions tests were born just as another element to evaluate a student and to just kind of put everyone on sort of an equal playing field. You could argue against that, but anyway, it was just a kind of standard method to evaluate a student. It's taken into context with your academic record, with the transcript that you'll be sending. And the application process for the US is much more holistic in general as compared to the UK. So they're not going to be just looking at these admissions tests. You don't need to stress about them being your one-all into admission into a US university. However, it will be taken into consideration. And different universities are going to vary as to how much they weight these exams. And it is becoming increasingly popular for universities to have these exams be optional. So this is called test optional institutions. Most universities are still going to be requiring either the ACT or the SAT as part of the application, but you just be aware that not all require them. So that's just something to be aware of. You want to double check what the requirements are of each university. In the US, every university has the freedom to set their own requirements for the application. So that means that you're going to have to check every website, every university, to see whether they require these exams. So we do recommend that you do that. We always get the question, you know, whether should I take the SAT, should I take the ACT, which one's better, is there a preference from the universities? There's no preference. They're both considered equal value. So really what we recommend in choosing between the two is just to determine which one is a better fit for you. They are quite similar, but they vary slightly in their duration and some of the content. So you want to just take a practice test of both and see which one you do better in, which one suits your test taking abilities or what's a good fit for you. So that's what we normally recommend as far as choosing. And it might be that some of the dates that the ACT is administered works better as compared to when the SAT is administered in the UK. And that might be an element of how you choose between the two. But just be aware as far as how they're evaluated, they're completely equal in value. Also, just a note on subject tests, some of the most ultra competitive institutions might ask for SAT subject tests. We're not going to go into depth about this today because it's increasingly uncommon and it's only those highly competitive institutions. So if you do have questions about that, you can contact us by email or on our helpline later. A few testing tips. I think Erica is going to go much more in depth about some tips that you can go for and how you strategize around these tests. But I do just want to kind of hit on a few of our tips that we normally say to students who are entering into this process and a bit daunted by these admissions exams. The first is that you want to be sure to start early, check those requirements of each university just to make sure that this is something you have to do. And you also want to try and register as soon as possible. Seats do book up quickly, and there are only so many registration centers and testing dates. So you want to be sure that you're timing it right according to those application deadlines. So we normally recommend that you sit the test in the summer before year 13. That would be around now, but at least by October, just so that you make sure you get your scores back in time. And for anyone who does want to resit the exam, that is a possibility. We normally advise, if you don't feel like you would make marked improvement by resitting the exam, that you avoid resitting, just because in some instances it might not look so good if you do worse the second time. They will also have on the score report each test that you take, so universities will see your previous score. Some institutions do practice what we call super scoring, and that's where they take the best score of each section with either test, and they combine that into a kind of super score. But again, that depends on institution. You also want to make sure that you're properly revising for these exams. These tests are not like what you're used to in the UK. It's much more testing logic and how you test and how you strategize and test endurance as compared to any content. You're not going to be having to study literature or anything like that beforehand. And this will be much more clear as Erica runs through some example questions. But just be aware that you want to take some time and effort to just get used to this kind of test format, to do some practice questions, to practice your test endurance especially. It's a long exam and there's many parts to it, and so it does require prolonged concentration. So you want to try and revise, take some full-length practice tests. We have resources on our website that links to a lot of these resources. Erica is going to be talking about a few today, and we have that just on our website. We will also link to some of these resources too, as well as others that you can look into. Okay, so that's enough of me talking. Now I'm so excited to welcome Erica, who is the Business Development Manager of International Markets for the ACT, and she's going to present more information about the ACT and how to go about that, and a lot of that transfers over with the SAT as well. So over to you, Erica.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this evening, your time, still morning my time, as we walk through the ACT exam. So before we get started, I'm going to share my screen so that I can put up the first sheet that we'll actually walk through as a part of our preparation for the ACT. So one moment. All righty. All right, so 2 standardized tests for students who are looking to gain admittance into universities, the ACT and the SAT. I'm gonna walk us through, I'm gonna start off talking about the scoring. ACT is scored out of 1 to 36. When a student takes the ACT exam, they will receive 2 scores. The first score is titled your composite score, which is the average of each section with the scoring range of 1 to 36. And then the second score that ACT gives is a STEM score, which is your math and science score combined. So let's jump right in and see the differences between the ACT and the SAT. The test purpose for both ACT and SAT, they are the same. The difference is with the ACT, there is a science component that's built into the test. So there's 4 mandatory sections: reading, mathematics, English, and science, and 1 optional section, which is the writing. And SAT does have that optional section as well. As far as university admissions, all of the ACT and both SAT are accepted by all colleges and universities in the United States, but the ACT is also accepted in more than 200 universities around the world. So it's not just specific to colleges and universities in the US. So when we walk through the ACT, one of the components we'll start off with is the ACT mathematics. So with ACT mathematics, this is where one of the STEM differences you'll start to see within the exam. So it's a multiple choice, 100%. Preparing for higher math, 65 to 70% of it is algebra. ACT does not give formulas on the ACT math section. With that, we always tell students when you start to prepare for ACT and math, you want to make sure that one of your first tools is that you go online, you download ACT. There's an ACT math formula guide. So if the student wants to start that process of preparing, they have their ACT math formula guide, and they'll use it throughout their preparation for ACT. But when they get to the actual test, you won't see a formula guide within the mathematics section. I want to pause right there and say something very specific about the ACT. Last September, ACT migrated from a paper and pencil-based test to being a computerized based test. So now ACT is not paper and pencil, it's CBT. And what are the benefits of being a CBT exam? Well, it gives students an opportunity to get their test scores back in 2 days. So if the students test on a Friday or Saturday, by Wednesday morning, they will actually have their scores sent back to them in their email. So we just wanted to make sure everyone had that understanding that with ACT versus SAT, ACT computerized based test, results back in 2 days, and SAT paper and pencil. As you can see on the SAT, there is a calculator portion and a non-calculator portion. For ACT, you can utilize your calculator through the entire 60 minutes of the math section of the exam. ACT also has a reading test. You'll get 40 questions. You'll have 35 minutes. All of those questions in that section are 100% multiple choice. It goes over some of the key ideas, structure, integration of knowledge and ideas. In the reading section, you'll get 4 passages, and there'll be 10 questions per passage, and you'll actually be able to see that in a few moments. Then we have the ACT English test, 75 questions, 45 minutes. Students are always asking, what are the tools that we need in order to prepare? So sometimes we often tell students, hey, if you want to reabreast yourself of your grammar skills, wanting to understand the differences between colons, commas, semicolons, apostrophes, brackets, parentheses, you can download a grammar hand guide online, just so that as you start the process of preparing for ACT, when you get to those conventions of standard English, you'll also have a guide to help you along the way. Then there are other topics such as production of writing, topic development, making sure that it's organized, unity and cohesion exists, and just basic knowledge of language. The other section of the ACT, which is section 4, is the science test. You'll get 40 questions, 35 minutes. We always have students saying, well, I'm not a science student or I'm not a STEM student, so I don't think the ACT is right for me. So today we want you to know that ACT is for STEM and non-STEM students. Actually, as we go through some of the questions, you'll see the different passage formats on the science test. And those formats are data representation questions, research summaries, and conflicting viewpoints. And so definitely students who are non-STEM students should also give this an opportunity to give themselves an opportunity and walk through those science questions before they make that determination that the ACT, because of the science component, is not right for them. So when we look at the SAT test, there's no science test. There is a reading subject test, which is constructed of 40% science, and the writing and language subject test is constructed of 25% science, but there's no specific science section. Students would have to take science SAT subject tests in regards to getting specific science tests. Then we look at both the ACT writing. For both the ACT writing and SAT, the writing is optional. The ACT writing, you get one prompt, is about 40 minutes. SAT writing, you will actually get one task, and the timing that you have is 50 minutes. So this was just a quick overview, just to make sure that we have an understanding that there's some difference. Some of the main differences as we walk away from this particular grid is that the ACT math will have an extension of functions and trigonometric functions on the test, 3 to 5 questions. So you may get to the actual higher level of math. ACT math calculator usage through the entire time. SAT calculator portion and non-calculator portion. We both have a reading test. The science component in ACT is a science test. If you needed to do the science in SAT, students would do subject tests. So moving right along, I'll give everyone an opportunity to actually open the link that was given to you. It was titled Preparing for the ACT. One moment. And then the Preparing for the ACT, it's actually an online resource, which is our most recent ACT exam. And once you open that up, we're going to start the process on page 12. So once you open that resource, you can just scroll down till you get to page 12. And this guide is a guide you'll find if you go online to Google, type in preparing for the ACT PDF. You will see a couple various years. You'll see 2017, 2018, 2018, 2019. And this upcoming September, you'll see our most recent exam, which is 2019, 2020. But today, for this purpose, I'm just going to walk us through the entire ACT exam, all 4 sections, just so that we can familiarize ourselves with the type of questions that are on the test. Although you heard me say earlier that we transitioned to a computerized based test, I'll also give you information of where you can go and gain information and practice in the same simulation that you will see on test day. All right, so everyone should be at page 12. So the first thing we want to look at is the English test. 45 minutes, 75 questions. In this section, there'll be about 5 passages. And as you can see, there's an underlined portion throughout the various passages. Students always need to make sure that when they start practicing for standardized tests, they actually have an idea of what will my strategy be as I start to actually, what will be my strategy when I start preparing for English. Well, first we said earlier that as a student, if you wanted to refresh on a grammar guide, you can just download a grammar guide. And then you can also decipher, will I be the student to read the entire passage, or will I read the question first and then go back to the passage? So everyone should be familiar with which strategy they will use. So what you will see in the English section is that it will test you on all the things that I just aforementioned: grammar, rhetorical skills, punctuation, ways, do you know how to fix a fragment, run-on sentence, and so on. So when you log into the system, you will see the passage listed on your screen. You will actually look at the number, and then you'll look at the underlined portion. Based upon the underlined portion, it is asking you, number 1, which choice most effectively emphasizes the complexity of the paper sculptures. So it's asking you, based upon the underlined word, should you change the underlined word, or would you utilize one of the other options? If the underlined portion is correct, you will put no change. If it is incorrect, you would then look at the other 3 options to be able to determine what is the correct answer. So we'll take a second right now, and at the end of this session, we'll actually go over the answers. But I'll give you a couple of minutes to answers number 1 through 3. So we'll start there. So read the question, look at the underlined portions, and make a determination. If the question is correct, if an underlined portion is correct, you will put no change. If it is not, you will actually put the correct answer. As you can see, our answer system is A, B, C, D, and then F, G, H, J. On the computerized based system, you would be actually clicking the correct answer on the screen. But for this illustration, we'll just walk through and you can just circle the items or write down the answers for the English section. So I'll give you a couple more moments. All right, so one of the things that we always hear students say, hey, do we need to just read the underlined question, or do we need to read the entire passage, or do we just need to read a sentence before or a sentence after? As a rule of thumb, we want to make sure that students read the entire sentence. Don't just look at the underlined portion, but make sure you read the entire sentence, read the passage. If there's a sentence or 2 thereafter, make sure that you walk through those questions. So these, as you can see, these are some of the beginning types of questions that you will see in ACT. When we referred you to go to the grammar guides or to download to make sure that you are familiar with your rules for commas and colons, as we walk through, I'll show you a couple of questions that target those particular areas. So as looking at rules for commas, number 4, is the comma placement correct? Understanding the difference, number 6, commas, dashes, making sure that everyone knows how to correctly put those in regards to how the actual sentence is drafted. So like number 6, drag and craft it from the pages. Where does the comma placement go in those particular areas? Number 8, you'll see it's asking you, do you use therefore or eventually or of course or however? Then you'll get to different types of questions. As we move right along, you'll see number 14, another grammar punctuation, making sure that you know those. But then you also see combo questions. They may ask you to make sure that the comma placement is correct. And then look at number 17, looking at parentheses, etc. So as a student, you can actually walk through this guide to see the type of questions that they are asking you to make sure that you familiarize yourself with those types of questions and you refer. Some students even, they print this booklet down and they actually write down, well, this one was looking at comma choices or semicolon, or this one was looking at figurative devices, etc. So this is important. As you start to prepare, you want to make sure that you take the time and familiarize yourself with the different types of questions. Number 26, comma versus colon, and so on. I'm going to move to question 30 because this is one of the other types of questions that you would see. Question 30 asks us a question about the preceding passage as a whole. It says the writer wants to add the following sentence to the essay. Remember, he would say as he made his daily pickups, every quart counts. The sentence would be most logically placed at one point. And so some students refer these as the directional questions to be able to say, based upon the sentence, where would be the most logical point within the paragraph? Should it go in paragraph A, B, C, or D? And at what point? And so as a student, you will have to determine what is the proper place for that particular sentence. Moving right along, you'll see no change versus number 32, looking at parentheses and commas, making sure that everyone is abreast of those grammar rules. So this section, what we want to make sure is that everyone understands that you're reading the underlined portion. Your goal in this section is to make sure that the underlined portion is grammatically correct. If that underlined section is not grammatically correct, or if the punctuations are off, you have the opportunity to say if it's correct, no change. If it's not, let's pick an answer choice. That would be most fitting. Moving right along, we see question 51. Once again, semicolons, colons are, semicolons, commas, making sure that we have the right punctuation within the sentence, coupled with all the other types of questions that you will see that will ask you to see if this needs to be moved to one point in the system, what were they implying, looking at passages as a whole, making sure that you see what's the writer's main purpose of this section. So in this section, a lot of students need to make sure that they're conscious of time, making sure that we are conscious of the time and that we want to make sure that we answer as many questions in this section as we can. Our goal in ACT is to answer as many questions correctly in the time span allotted. There's no penalty if you need to actually take an educated guess by process of elimination. During the CBT version, you will have an opportunity to actually black out questions, so you can take out questions that you know are the incorrect answers to leave you with those answer choices in order for you to make your final choice. So ACT English, Grammar Handbook, making sure you understand your rules for colons, commas, punctuations, grammar, rhetorical skills, how to fix a fragment, how to fix a run-on sentence. All of those are the types of questions. What was the writer implying? What is the writer considering? If he considered to add another section or a sentence, would this be true? Those are all the types of questions that you will actually see in the ACT English section. After the English section on the CBT test, students would move to section 2 of the exam. So section 1 of the exam is English, section 2, mathematics, section 3, reading comprehension, and section 4, science. And then for those students who decided to do the writing is truly based upon the institution that you're trying to gain admission into, whether the institution has said you take the ACT or the SAT or the ACT with writing or the SAT with writing. So it's very important that as a student, you have your list of schools that are on your radar, and then you just write down on your sheet, these are the universities that ask for ACT, and then these universities ask for ACT with writing. So your best option would be to register for the ACT with writing. We're gonna spend a little time here, maybe about 2 to 3 minutes, because I want you to just get an understanding of a couple of things. With standardized tests, one of the tips that you really need to make sure that you're aware of is the time parameters. So for every section of the test, make sure you're aware of not just how much time we have for the entire section, but how much time do we have per question. So if we did that in the mathematics section, we're looking at 60 minutes, 60 questions. How much time do we have? 1 minute per question if we choose to answer all of the questions. Now, there'll be some questions that you can answer in less than a minute, and that's great because you'll need to save that time up for those other questions that will take you longer than a minute. So I'm going to set my timer. Remember, you are able to use a calculator in the entire portion of the ACT math exam, and we're just going to put ourselves to the test. Once I say start, I want to be able to see at the end how many questions were you able to do in the 1 minute time span. All right, so section 2, math section, you may begin 1 minute. Pencils down. All right, that's 1 minute. So just take a little moment, jot down the number of questions that you were able to complete in the 1 minute time span. I'm going to show you a couple of places that you can actually go to as a resource to be able to see all of the types of questions. ACT starts from pre-algebra, algebra, geometry, intermediate algebra, and then it has 3 to 5 questions, as we stated previously, in the trigonometric functions that will allow you to be able to answer those questions. Some of those questions, we want to make sure that students don't leave questions blank. By process of elimination, we want you to answer as many questions as you can, but definitely make sure that as you start the process of looking at one of the resources that will show you, that'll tell you all of the different topics, that you actually create a little grid for yourself. And for every subject, you want every topic, say for instance, we're doing quadratic equations, you want to make sure that you do an entry-level question, then you do a medium tier question, and then you start to actually work on those very difficult, challenging questions. So that if you do that for all of the topics, when you start the process of taking those sample tests, you will be able to see, and you will already have a scheme for how you answer those very rigorous questions. We don't want you to just foster a concept of just doing very entry-level questions as your practice. We need to make sure that you do entry-level, medium-tiered, and rigorous questions. All right, so moving right along to section 3. Section 3 is the reading section. You have 4 passages that are about 85 to 87 lines, and then you'll have 10 questions per passage. So you'll have a total of 40 questions. So it's very important that in this section, as a student, you take one of these passages or any of the other passages that we have online, and you actually time yourself to be able to see how long it will actually take you to read this passage. So if it takes me 3 minutes to read the passage, I know that there's 4 minutes, there's 4 passages, so that's 12 minutes that I'll utilize in just reading, and all of the time that I have remaining, I will devote that time to answering questions. But I want to take us to page 34 and 35, just so that I can give you a little tips on things that you want to do when we're talking about being time conscious, time management. ACT gives us opportunities to be able to see where do we go to answer those particular, to get the information for those particular questions. So on number 11, passage A, lines 6 through 7. Number 12, it tells us passage A. 17, passage B, lines 74 through 79. 13, passage A. 14, passage B. 19 is a comparison between passage A and B. 15, line 80. 16, line 82 through 83. And 20, lines 11 through 12. So it's very important that you make sure that you acquaint yourself with the styles of questions that you'll see for ACT. What you want to do is make sure that you're timing, and not just reading, but reading and comprehending, and then have an understanding that, hey, on some of these passages, I'm going to get so many in every section, it's going to send me exactly to where the question they are asked, where the information, I will be able to find the information. So it's very important that you time yourselves, you're aware of your time parameters, you're aware of the opportunity for you to look at line numbers and refer. And then you also want to make sure that you're on the proper passage, so that that question is asking you about passage A versus passage B, that you've definitely taken the opportunity to look at that. And then it takes us to section 4. This is one of the sections that, as I said before, combines for your STEM score. Your math score and your science score gives you your STEM score. Two scores you'll receive in ACT, your composite and your STEM. So ACT science, you'll see some scientific verbiage, you'll see data interpretation, you'll see all of those types of questions, conflicting viewpoints, or research summaries. Your goal as a student is to make sure that you identify what type of question is this. Is this a data interpretation question? Some students will take a long time reading all of the information, but a part of this process is to make sure, are you able to, when the time span allows, to be able to answer those questions correctly and know what are the styles of questions, know that the background information you will need is making sure you know how to read a table. When you look at this table, what's the first thing do you make sure that you're aware of? Well, I want to see that this is time versus mass of food, and then I want to make sure that I look at the key. So you want to familiarize yourself with the types of tables and the types of information. So I'll give us a couple seconds. Remember, there's 3 categories: data interpretation. On those types of questions, you'll just be interpreting the data. Conflicting viewpoints, multiple scientists, different views on the same type of experiments. You'll see scientists A believe this, B believe that, C believe that. Research summaries, all of the information from the research summaries will be listed, and as a student, you will need to make sure that you answer the question that's being asked based upon the information on the table that is shown. All right, so let's take a couple of seconds before we move to some of our preparatory tools that will help you. So I'll give you about 45 seconds to answer question number 1. All right, so jot down your answer. Take this section. After this session that we're having today, make sure you familiarize yourself with all of the various types of questions that you'll see throughout the ACT science section. So a non-STEM student, are you able to answer that question? Yes, of course. It is the question that you're able to answer. And once you actually start the process of utilizing ACT's tools that we have available, it'll help you actually prepare and be able to understand the types of questions. And then you start to test yourselves, looking at an experiment, answering the questions. And then as you can see, as I'm flowing through, you can see the different types of table, graphs, and everything that you'll see on the ACT exam. And then the last section of ACT, which is that optional section, will be the writing section. At your leisure, you can actually look at that prompt that's listed in the back of this book. So preparing for the ACT PDF, this is your resource as seeing a full-length retired ACT exam. Let's check over for the sake of time to make sure we get in all of our resources. Our second resource is called ACT Academy. On ACT Academy, you have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of free ACT prep. What's so great about ACT Academy? That it's more than just videos. You are able to have resources. If you need a book, you can actually do it by grade level and things of that nature to help you prepare for the ACT. Soon as you go online, it's a free site. You join, you say, I am a student. You join the ACT Academy. And as soon as you join, you'll get an opportunity to take a sample ACT test. So there'll be practice tests that you can have. They're broken down by subject. It's a great resource for students who are definitely looking to prepare for the ACT. It's great on your mobile device, 24 hours, 7 days a week practice for the ACT exam. Now, I mentioned earlier about ACT moving to a computerized based test, and we're so excited about students having the capacity to get their test scores in just 2 days. So here is where students will actually go to practice in the same simulation that they would see on test day. So you would just log into actclub.org, and that will give you access to this page. It'll say, welcome to the ACT Club. You'll join the club, and once you've joined the club, you will navigate up under resources to CBT practice tests, and then you would have access. It will be listed here at the bottom once you join the club, 5 timed and 5 untimed ACT subject tests. You'll get some information if you have questions about ACT Academy. This is a great resource, and then you'll see other university and test prep resources for the ACT exam. Our fourth option that we have 75-minute free sessions that are on YouTube. So as a student, if you're truly interested that you want to say, well, before I start my practice, I want to get some 75-minute sessions of in-depth questions that will cover all of the relevant topics. Well, you can go to YouTube, type in ACT Kaplan Online Prep Live. And as you can see, the first one is Introduction to ACT Math. We have ELA concepts, reading, science, and then we do have a sample live class for you. So those students who are interested in getting those relevant topics and just having a session prior to starting their ACT prep, that's a great resource for you. And when and where do we go to test? Well, as you can see here, ACT has 6 test dates. And actually with ACT, you can test on a Friday or a Saturday. We have both AM and PM sessions. Basically, you can go online to ACT.org, and you can locate based upon the site that's most convenient to your location, and you can register for the exam. The ACT test dates for the 2019-2020 year are open, so students can see those test dates and they can start to register. ACT with writing is $166.50, and ACT no writing is $150. Now, we do have a couple of other resources on ACT.org. If you wanted to get a little bit more robust prep, if you want to do maybe like a weekend boot camp, we do have, as you can see over here in the ACT prep section, you'll see we have ACT online prep, ACT rapid review, the guide, and of course, ACT Academy, and those other 3 resources that I just showed you, they are there for free. So let's just recap before we go into the question and answer section. ACT is used at all colleges and universities, both ACT and SAT. The university admission test is taken by most of the high school students in the US, so it's not that ACT is the alternative, but both tests are equally utilized at colleges and universities, no matter of the selectivity of the institution. We've gone through the 4 mandatory components: English, mathematics, reading comprehension, science, and our optional writing test. And we've also given you various sites, our Preparing for the ACT PDF, our ACT Academy, our ACT Kaplan online prep, and all of those resources will actually help you to prepare for the ACT. We just want you to be aware that some students take both ACT and SAT. They submit both scores. Some of the students take both ACT and SAT to see which test they've actually scored higher. There's an ACT, SAT concordance table. You can go online and you can Google it, and you can see this was my ACT score, this is my SAT score, and some students determine, well, hey, we'll submit our highest score to colleges and universities. Well, thank you so much for this brief overview of the ACT. We're now going to turn it back over to Sarah, and any questions that you have, you should have placed them in the question and answer. And then you can actually turn to page 57, 58, and 59 to check your answers on that questions that we actually just went through during that time span for both English, mathematics, and that science question. So thank you so much, and I'll send it back over to you, Sarah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Erica. There was a lot of very useful and helpful information in your presentation. I might have you keep your video on. I'll probably keep mine off since probably most of the questions will be directed to you. So now we'll move forward with the Q&A. If you could please refrain from asking very specific questions. We want to hear questions that would be helpful for the whole group to hear. And you can use the Q&A box. So if you could address your questions in the Q&A box rather than the chat, and then I can address them to Erica. If you do have specific questions, we do have an advising inbox and helpline, and that helpline is open Tuesdays and Thursdays. There's contact details on our website, so feel free to direct any specific questions there as well. Okay, so we've had one question come through asking about the ideal time to do the exam. This is in the context of someone who would be applying for a scholarship after year 13 and currently going to start year 12. So around just generally the time frame of when would be the ideal date to do the exam.
Well, it just depends on the student. If the student has gone through a process of practicing for ACT and they've taken their practice test, and in the practice test, they're scoring at their level, they want to make sure that they've done that within their time frame. When we look at the calendar year for students who are applying to colleges and university, the year opens up, let's say, in August. And then if that student is going to do early decision or early action, they will definitely need their scores by November 1st. So if you're looking at the time frame and you're looking at the test schedule, you see that ACT has a test in September and a test in October. If a student waits to that September or an October date and they realize that they actually need to increase their test scores, then they've sort of pushed themselves into a box. So we always tell students at least by February, April of that year that you're proceeding your application time span. So if you're going to apply starting in August, you should start to take a sample test at least a year before that. If you want to take the actual test no later than February, April, or June, that will give you enough time that if you needed to retest and you were practicing to submit scores for that November 1st deadline, then you would test either that June test, September, or October is still open for you. So it just depends on the student, they're practicing, and which timeline they're following. If they're doing early decision, November 1st, and if they're doing regular decision, most schools, January 1st is sort of their deadlines, and you want to make sure that you have your tests by then. Some students do it much earlier. They do it a year in advance, give themselves a year to practice. So it's definitely based upon choice.
Yeah, definitely about finding what's the best fit for you. Okay, and another question is, can you still use paper and pencil to do workings for math and science sections on the ACT?
Yes, when you get to your actual test center, there'll be something for you to actually utilize to work your math questions. So great question. Although it is CBT, we will ensure that students still have the opportunity to have paper and pencil or a whiteboard or something depending on your center that you can actually write down and work those questions. Just keep in mind that anything that you utilize, they will ensure that they collect them prior to the close of the examination.
Great. Another question that's come through is, how many months before the exam should students begin revision or studying for the exam?
Well, it just depends from student to student. We always tell students at least a year in advance, you want to start the process. Even for both ACT and SAT, we do have free short exams that you can actually take online. So take a free practice test, see where you are, and then also take in consideration, you don't want to just take a test, but you want to see, are you in the range of the institution that you're trying to gain admission into? So definitely is something that you want to look. If you're far from that, that means that you need to really have a robust training timetable. But if you're close, you want to just make sure that you keep yourself abreast and that you're taking practice exams and you have sufficient practice tools. But just make sure you keep in mind of what is the score range of the institution that you're trying to gain admittance into as well.
Great. Another one that's come through is, and I might actually answer this one, it's a bit more of a general question. So the question is, do universities still consider grades we get in sixth form in secondary school, as well as the SAT or ACT results? So maybe you missed that introduction part, which is fine. Yes, these grades will be considered holistically. So the application process in the US is much more holistic than as compared to the UK. And so if you haven't already been onto our website, there is an entire section on applying, which lists all the different components that go into the application. So that includes a transcript, which lists your academic achievement in sixth form, and any other kind of academic honors you have. And then they'll be looking at those grades as well as the SAT or ACT if they require it as far as your academic achievement. But that's not the only thing they'll be looking at. They'll also be looking at the essays that you'll be writing as part of the application, your recommendation letters, and just who you are generally. Applications are to the university as a whole as compared to the academic department in the UK. So that's why it's a bit more of a holistic process. They want to get a feel of who you are and not just the number that you get on a test. But it's just an extra component that they do evaluate in the admissions process. Okay, so someone's asked what the passing mark is for ACT, so kind of that range of scoring for the ACT.
I always tell students we don't have a passing mark. The score range is actually depending upon the institution you're trying to gain admittance. So students who are looking to gain admittance into very selective institutions, they're looking at scores at the 30s and above. Students who are, moderately selective, students need to actually go to the university's page to look at the score ranges that they have indicated in their admission guidelines on their website. Based upon the type of school and the program that students are actually trying to gain admittance to determines that score range. I've seen students who've gone to community colleges honors program need from 22 and above. So as a student, it's your goal to make sure that you look at the colleges and universities that are on your radar and make sure that you see what is the score range for admittance. And then sometimes look at the mean score for ACT and ACT of their incoming classes to give you an idea of what the range should be.
Yeah, and that also answers someone's more specific question about what kind of score you would need to get into these really competitive institutions. So that, yeah, Erica mentioned that 30s and above, but also it's going to completely depend on which competitive school as well. Every university should be posting an academic profile of the average admitted student from the previous year. So that will give you an idea of what the academic standard is for admission, but of course that's just a standard. They're going to be looking at that as kind of a cutoff point, but also there's going to be so many other things that go into admission, things like academic priorities. Maybe they're trying to increase their representation in a particular country. There's so many different elements that come into this, so it's just to kind of hone in, again, that it is going to be a holistic process with these scores as well. But of course, academic achievement is one of the highest evaluation points in the admissions process. But just so you're aware that we'll be considering a lot of other things as well. Someone asked, is the SAT and ACT scores equally applicable to European universities as well as US universities? I can answer this, or you can, Erica, either way.
You can answer, that's fine.
Okay, yeah. So this is specific to the US system. And like I mentioned at the beginning, that's because of how the US is set up at secondary school level, and the reality that there is no national curriculum system at secondary school level in the US. So that's why these standardized tests were created for US universities in particular, to be able to evaluate applicants just in one standard way. So that's not going to be anything that's required at European universities unless it's maybe an American university in Europe, like an American university abroad. Then that might be a component of their application. But most European universities are going to have their own system and their own requirements for admission into their institution. Any other questions? We can probably take one more. Okay, so one question has come in. If you're currently in year 12, is it too late to begin preparation for the exams?
No, it's not too late. We would just advise you to utilize the resources that we gave you today. I think it's very important that you have some type of diagnostic tool, whether it's one of our free online tests or one of the tests out of the official guides, as a diagnostic tool to be able to show you where you are, so that you can see, well, these are my strengths, these are my areas of opportunities, and then you create a timetable to actually say that you'll devote so much time every week preparing for ACT and ensuring you're utilizing those resources that we mentioned in this webinar, so that you can actually see your progression. So you have ACT Academy, you have the ACT Kaplan Online Prep. If you want something more robust that tailors a specific ACT program for you based upon how you test. So just make use of all of your resources and you can start preparing for ACT now.
Great, that was a really good question to end off on. So I just want to say thank you so much, Erica, for taking the time to present this information. I'm sure that everyone found it really, really helpful, and really just a great preparation for those who will be taking these tests, and a relief as well to know some more information. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. And like I said, we will have the recording sent out to everyone who's registered probably a week from now. And it'll also be posted on our YouTube channel. And we have a section on our website on admissions exams that will point you to some of these resources, and a lot of the resources as well that Erica was mentioning today. So you'll have access to those too. So thank you so much for joining us, and hope you have a great rest of your day, everyone. Take care.
Yeah, thanks for joining.